primetime moment for President Trump. Now, it wasn't quite Celebrity Apprentice, but he did build up the suspense, his biggest decision yet, and then came Judge Neil Gorsuch.
Right up to the last minute. At 49, Judge Neil Gorsuch is the youngest nominee in more than 25 years. Clarence Thomas was 43 when he was nominated back in 91. He's a Harvard Law School grad, a classmate of former President Obama, and the court will remain all Ivy League if he is indeed confirmed. And Judge Gorsuch also has a doctorate in legal philosophy from Oxford. He's often compared, of course, to Justice Scalia.
And after the announcement, President Trump tweeting, "Hope you like my nomination of Judge Neil Gorsuch for the United States Supreme Court. He is a good and brilliant man, respected by all."
But the opposition is already gearing up. Democrats vowing to fight, and you saw protests on the Supreme Court steps overnight. ABC's John Carlos at the White House with all the latest on this consequential pick. Good morning, John.
Good morning, George. Well, for President Trump, this is a promise kept. He has nominated a solid conservative to the Supreme Court, but next up is a bruising battle to get the Senate to confirm him.
I would like to ask Judge Gorsuch and his wonderful wife Louise to please step forward.
Tuesday night, during prime time, President Trump named federal appeals court Judge Neil Gorsuch as his pick for the Supreme Court. A judge, he told the crowd, that should be a shoo-in for confirmation.
Judge Gorsuch has outstanding legal skills, a brilliant mind, tremendous discipline, and has earned bipartisan support. When he was nominated to the 10th Circuit Court of Appeals, he was confirmed by the Senate unanimously. Also, that's unanimous. Can you believe that nowadays with what's going on? Does that happen anymore? Does it happen?
49-year-old Gorsuch, the youngest high court nominee in more than 2 decades, made a humble debut.
You've entrusted me with a most solemn assignment. Standing here in a house of history and acutely aware of my own imperfections, I pledge that if I am confirmed, I will do all my powers permit to be a faithful servant of the Constitution and laws of this great country.
Republicans instantly cheered Trump's pick, but Democrats warned of a tough fight ahead. Overnight, Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer expressed very serious doubts about Gorsuch's nomination, saying in a statement, quote, "Democrats will not simply allow, but require an exhaustive, robust, and comprehensive debate."
But there's one issue where Gorsuch could appeal to some Democrats, and that's the issue of executive overreach, which is a big concern with the Trump administration. He has argued forcefully in the past, George, that the courts have a critical role in keeping the executive branch from exerting too much power.
That will certainly come up in his confirmation hearings. John Carl, thanks very much. Let's bring in Terry Moran and Dan Abrams for more on this. And Terry, you've covered the Supreme Court for much of your career. We know Judge Gorsuch, stellar credentials, solid conservative, doesn't change the balance of the court right away. But what about over time if he gets confirmed?
Well, there's no question he's going to fit in here like a glove, George, because he worked here, he clerked here. He is, in fact, the 4th former Supreme Court clerk on this court now, and he clerked for Justice Kennedy, who still sits there. That's a first. And what he can do over time in replacing Justice Scalia, doctrinally, in terms of the law, they're very similar. But Justice Scalia was a happy warrior, a brawler up there. He didn't really care sometimes if he convinced other people. He wanted to get his opinion in the law. What we can expect from Judge Gorsuch, I think, is much more of a gentler and more collegial style. He'll try to make converts, not just make law.
And Terry, we saw President Trump there talk about the fact that Judge Gorsuch was approved unanimously by voice vote for his appeals court position. That's not going to happen on this one.
Not going to happen this time around. All of these Supreme Court confirmation battles right now are scorched earth. He will be demonized, certainly. It's going to be a little bit difficult because he does already have the support of President Obama's former Solicitor General, a high-ranking official in the Obama administration. He's that kind of pick, someone who has made friends across the political spectrum, across the judicial spectrum and legal spectrum, but he can expect definitely a rough going.
And I want to bring that to Dan Abrams, who's here as well. Terry talked about Neil Katyal, who was President Obama's acting Solicitor General, says he's a good man, should be confirmed. Other Democrats say, listen, this whole process is illegitimate. The seat shouldn't have been open in the first place.
Well, that's right. I mean, because look, he's exactly what one should expect from a Republican appointment. Precisely what one would expect. And so you could say, well, then it should be pretty easy. The issue is Merrick Garland, right? Which is President Obama appointed someone who never got a vote. And so the question is going to be for Democrats, do we so fundamentally believe that that was unfair and wrong that we're going to make our statement now over this particular nominee? And that's sort of the fundamental calculus that's going to have to go into the decision Democrats make on how hard to fight.
And they're already saying there's going to be a filibuster right now. Let's assume for a moment that he does get confirmed, because there will be 51 votes for him no matter what. What are the big cases he'll be looking at right away?
There are a number of cases, particularly with regard to schools. For example, transgender rights. 17-year-old boy born as a girl. Does he have a fundamental right to use a boy's bathroom? There's going to be a case on the police use of force. Police typically have immunity for actions that they do while they're police officers. The question is, where is that line to be drawn? The rights of religious schools. What kinds of benefits can they get? Also, a really interesting one about disabled children, and a question of what benefits, educational opportunities are schools, public schools, required to provide for kids with disabilities, in this case, autism. So a lot of really interesting cases.
The question is, how quickly does he get on
That's
the court?
right. That's
okay,
right.
Dan Abrams, thanks very much.